She was 80 years old, sitting outside a sold-out Madonna concert, crying because she couldn't get in. Everyone ignored her. Security told her to leave, but when Madonna found her there, what happened next became one of the most beautiful moments in concert history. June 23, 2012. The O2 Arena in London was completely sold out for Madonna's MDNA World Tour. 20,000 tickets had been gone for months, and scalpers were selling seats for triple the original price. Inside the arena, fans were already screaming. The opening act had just finished, and the energy was building toward Madonna's appearance. Outside the arena, in the cooling London evening, an 80-year-old woman named Margaret Williams sat on the concrete steps leading to the main entrance, crying into her hands. Margaret had travelled alone from a small town called Whitby, about 250 miles north of London. She'd taken a train that morning, a journey that had taken nearly 6 hours with 2 transfers. She'd brought a small overnight bag with a change of clothes and a thermos of tea. She'd been planning this trip for 3 years. 3 years ago, Margaret's husband of 58 years had died. His name was Thomas, and he'd been the love of her life since they met at a dance hall in 1952. They'd raised 4 children together, built a small life in Whitby, and grown old watching the world change around them. Thomas had always teased Margaret about her love of Madonna. "She's young enough to be your daughter," he'd say, laughing. "What's an old bird like you doing listening to pop music?" But Margaret didn't care. She'd discovered Madonna's music in the 1980s when her youngest daughter had brought home a cassette tape of Like a Virgin. Something about Madonna's fearlessness, her refusal to apologize for being exactly who she was, had resonated with Margaret in a way she couldn't quite explain. She'd been raised to be quiet, proper, to never make waves. Madonna was the opposite of everything Margaret had been taught to be, and that made her fascinating. Thomas had known how much Margaret loved Madonna, even if he didn't understand it. And before he died, he'd made Margaret promise him something. "When I'm gone," Thomas had said, holding her hand in the hospital, "I don't want you to stop living. I want you to do something for yourself, something that makes you happy. Promise me." Margaret had promised, and she'd decided that she would finally see Madonna perform live. She'd never been to a concert before, never allowed herself that kind of frivolous expense, but this would be her gift to herself, her way of honoring Thomas's last wish. She'd started saving immediately. £10 here, £20 there, money she'd squirrel away from her pension. It took 3 years to save enough for the train ticket and the concert ticket. 3 years of careful budgeting, of saying no to small luxuries, of putting every extra penny into an envelope she kept in her nightstand labeled Madonna. 2 weeks before the concert, Margaret went online to buy her ticket. She'd never bought anything on the internet before, and her neighbor's teenage grandson had helped her navigate to the ticketing website. "Sold out," the website said. "Every seat gone." Margaret had felt her heart sink. She'd been so focused on saving the money that she hadn't thought to buy the ticket early. The teenager had shown her the resale sites, where scalpers were selling tickets, but the prices were impossible. £300, £400, more than Margaret had saved in 3 years. She'd thanked the boy, gone home, and cried for an hour. But then Margaret had made a decision. She would go to London anyway. She would go to the arena, and she would stand outside, and she would at least be near the music. Maybe she'd hear something through the walls. Maybe just being there, in the same building where Madonna was performing, would be enough. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the promise she'd made to Thomas. It was about doing something for herself, about being brave enough to make the journey, even if she couldn't get inside. So here she was, sitting on the steps outside the O2 Arena, listening to the muffled sounds of music coming from inside the building, crying because she was so close, and yet so far from the dream she'd spent 3 years working toward. People walked past her constantly, families heading into the arena for the show, groups of young women in Madonna t-shirts, laughing and taking selfies, security guards making their rounds. Everyone saw her, this elderly woman crying on the steps, but everyone looked away. It was easier to pretend she wasn't there than to stop and ask if she was okay. One security guard did stop. "Ma'am, you can't sit here," he said, not unkindly but firmly. "If you don't have a ticket, you need to move along." "I know," Margaret said, wiping her eyes. "I'm sorry. I'll go in just a moment." But she didn't move. She couldn't bring herself to leave. Not yet. Inside the arena, Madonna was in her dressing room, doing final preparations before the show. Her tour manager came in with the usual pre-show checklist. "We're 10 minutes out," he said. "Crowd's ready. Everything's set." Madonna nodded, but something felt off. She couldn't explain it. Just a strange feeling that she needed to step outside for a moment, needed some air before going on stage. "I'm going to walk around outside for a minute," Madonna said. "Clear my head." Her security team objected immediately. "It's not a good idea. There are fans everywhere. It'll cause chaos." "Then we'll use the back exit," Madonna said. 5 minutes. That's all I need." They compromised. Madonna would exit through a side door that led to a secured area near the loading docks, away from the public entrances. She'd get her air, but she'd stay away from the crowds. Madonna stepped outside, breathing in the cool London evening. Her security team flanked her, but she walked a few steps away from them, just wanting a moment of quiet before the performance. That's when she heard it. Someone crying, not dramatic sobbing, but quiet, heartbroken crying, the kind of crying that comes from deep disappointment. Madonna followed the sound, her security team trailing nervously behind her. She walked around the corner of the building, toward the public entrance area she wasn't supposed to be near. And that's when she saw Margaret. The old woman was sitting on the steps, her face in her hands, completely unaware that anyone was watching her. Most of the crowd had already gone inside, and the plaza area was relatively empty now. Madonna walked closer. Her security team tried to stop her, but she waved them off. She climbed the few steps and sat down next to Margaret. "Are you all right?" Madonna asked gently. Margaret looked up, startled. It took her brain a few seconds to process what she was seeing. Madonna, the actual Madonna, sitting next to her on the steps. "Oh my God," Margaret whispered. "Are you okay?" Madonna asked again. "Why are you crying?" Margaret couldn't find words. She just stared, tears still running down her face, unable to believe this was happening. Madonna took Margaret's hand. "Hey, it's okay. Talk to me. What's wrong?" Something about the kindness in Madonna's voice, the genuine concern, broke through Margaret's shock. "I don't have a ticket," she said, her voice shaking. "I saved for 3 years to come here. I'm from Whitby. I took the train all day to get here, but I didn't buy the ticket in time, and now it's sold out, and I can't afford the resale prices, and I just wanted to be here, even if I couldn't get inside, because I promised my husband before he died that I would do something for myself, something that made me happy, and this was supposed to be it." The words came tumbling out in a rush, and by the end of it, Margaret was crying harder than before. Madonna was quiet for a moment, taking all of this in. Then she said, "What's your name?" "Margaret. Margaret Williams." "Margaret, How old are you? 80. And you traveled 250 miles to sit outside my concert. Margaret nodded, embarrassed. I know it's silly. An old woman like me, crying over a pop concert. But it meant something to me. You meant something to me. Madonna's eyes filled with tears. It's not silly, she said firmly. It's the opposite of silly. You're one of the bravest people I've ever met. Margaret looked confused. Brave? I'm just a foolish old woman. No, Madonna said. You saved for 3 years. You traveled alone across the country. You came here even though you knew you couldn't get in, just to be near the music. That's not foolish. That's courage. Madonna stood up and held out her hand to Margaret. Come with me. What? Margaret said, not moving. Come with me, Madonna repeated. You're not sitting outside my concert. You're coming inside. But I don't have a ticket, Margaret said. Yes, you do, Madonna said, smiling. You've had a ticket all along. You just didn't know it yet. Margaret let Madonna pull her to her feet. Madonna turned to her security team. Take Margaret to my private box. Get her whatever she wants to eat or drink. Make her comfortable. And tell the tour manager we're starting 10 minutes late. The security team nodded and gently guided Margaret toward the entrance. Margaret kept looking back at Madonna, still not quite believing this was happening. Wait, Margaret called out. Why? Why would you do this for me? Madonna smiled. Because you reminded me why I do this. It's not about the sold-out shows, or the reviews, or the money. It's about people like you, who love music enough to travel 250 miles just to be near it. You deserve to be inside. Margaret was led into the arena, through corridors she'd never imagined she'd see, up to a private box that overlooked the entire stage. The view was incredible. She could see everything. A staff member brought her tea and biscuits. Madonna wanted to make sure you were comfortable, the woman said kindly. Is there anything else you need? Margaret shook her head, unable to speak. She was crying again, but these were different tears now. These were tears of gratitude, of disbelief, of joy. The lights went down, the crowd roared, and then Madonna appeared on stage, and the show began. For the next 2 hours, Margaret experienced something she'd dreamed about for 30 years. She watched Madonna perform, saw the choreography up close, heard every note clearly. She sang along to the songs she knew, cried during the emotional moments, and felt alive in a way she hadn't felt since Thomas died. Halfway through the show, during a quieter moment, Madonna addressed the crowd. Tonight, I want to dedicate this next song to someone very special. Her name is Margaret, and she's 80 years old. She traveled 250 miles to be here tonight, and she reminded me that music isn't about age or circumstance. It's about passion. It's about courage. This one's for you, Margaret. The spotlight swept up to Margaret's box for just a moment. 20,000 people turned to look at her, and the applause was thunderous. Margaret waved, overwhelmed, and Madonna blew her a kiss from the stage. After the show, Madonna came to see Margaret in the private box. She brought her a signed poster, a tour t-shirt, and something else, an envelope. What's this? Margaret asked. Open it, Madonna said. Inside the envelope was money, enough to cover Margaret's train ticket home, and then some. There was also a handwritten note. Thank you for reminding me why I do this. Keep being brave. Love, Madonna. Margaret tried to refuse the money, but Madonna wouldn't hear it. You spent 3 years saving to be here. Let me cover the cost of getting you home safely. Margaret hugged Madonna, this woman she'd admired from a distance for so long, and whispered, Thank you. You've given me the most beautiful night of my life. You gave me something too, Madonna said. You gave me a reminder that there are still people out there who love music for the right reasons. That's more valuable than you know. The story of Margaret and Madonna spread quickly. Someone had filmed the moment when Madonna brought Margaret into the arena, and it went viral within hours. News outlets picked up the story. Madonna's gesture was celebrated as an example of kindness and humanity in an industry that often feels cold and commercial. But for Margaret, the real gift wasn't just the concert. It was the validation that her passion wasn't silly or frivolous. That at 80 years old, she was still allowed to love pop music, to travel alone on an adventure, to be brave enough to sit outside a sold-out concert, just to be near something she loved. Margaret lived for 3 more years after that night. She passed away at 83, surrounded by her children and grandchildren. At her funeral they played Madonna's Like a Prayer, and in her obituary her family wrote, "She taught us that it's never too late to be brave, and that passion doesn't have an expiration date." Madonna still keeps a photo of herself and Margaret from that night. It's in her dressing room at every show, a reminder of why she performs, of who she's really singing for. If this incredible story of courage, kindness, and never being too old to follow your passion moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to be brave, that your passions matter at any age, and that sometimes the universe rewards courage in the most unexpected ways. Have you ever taken a chance on something you loved, even when it seemed impossible? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing true stories about the moments that change everything.